Hey everybody, welcome to episode 4 of Startup Segments. My name is Theresa and I'm the head of marketing at Simple Desk. So I actually got a question last week. I was asked, how do you name your business and then how do you brand it? So I'm going to talk very briefly about a neat way that you can come up with a name for your business and then my key points that are essential when you are creating any marketing materials, keeping them on brand. So let's get started. Okay, so when it comes to naming your business, that's a really important thing. You really want to spend a lot of time thinking about what name fits with your business, whether it's service-based or product-based, because that's essentially what people are going to remember. You don't want something really long or hard to pronounce or confusing. Like, you don't want to pick something that doesn't go with what it is that you do. You want to have something that's easy to remember, it's quick, it's just it just sticks and it's very top of mind. So when you're trying to brainstorm, that could be honestly overwhelming. You're like, where do I start? How do I pick a name, that name that's going to define my brand? What I usually suggest is that you create a vision board. So you just kind of think about adjectives or verbs or things that you want to have associated with yourself and your business. Just write them down, because oftentimes when you see things visually and you're kind of brainstorming how you want to be perceived by the community, things will start just kind of clicking, and you'll find that 9 times out of 10 you'll find a name just by having something visually in front of you. And that essentially, the great thing about that too is the vision board is very focused. So you know you're already thinking about things that you want to have associated with your business. So once you find a name, you know it's going to fit with how you want to be perceived by your community. There's tons of different ways to come up with a name. Some people are just lucky and they wake up one morning and poof, there it is. For some of us, that's not that easy. So there are different ways to do that. I just find the vision board is really helpful. Like I said, 9 times out of 10 people find their name just doing that alone. So when it comes to branding is really important. I see people all the time just creating things for the sake of creating things with no cohesiveness, which is doing a huge disservice to yourself for putting all those hours in to create things, and it's just not representing your brand well. So there are a few things that I say are important when it comes to branding. My first is that you pick fonts that work with one another, and then those fonts, you have to use them the same every time. Don't pick 2 fonts and then go with a bunch of different fonts and use different fonts every time. There should be, I usually say a good rule of thumb is 2 fonts that kind of work with each other, and then go from there. Just use those 2. You don't always have to use them together. You can use one by itself. You can use them together. It doesn't really matter. You just kind of play around. A good rule of thumb too is if you're going to be doing a script font, make sure that it's really legible. I found in my years of doing graphic design, some script fonts are absolutely horrible to work with. So you just want to make sure everything's legible, especially for people that may be hard of sight. It just makes it accessible for everybody. Another rule of thumb that I say when it comes to branding is pick brand colors that work for you. Don't pick purple or pink because you like purple and pink. Pick it because it fits with your product or service. There are some really great resources online where you can see psychologically what colors invoke what feelings for people, or what emotions come when they see the color blue or they see the color red. And then kind of think back to that vision board, or think about how you want to be perceived by the community, those adjectives, and find the colors that fit not only with those keywords, but also with your product. So it may be a bit of a guessing game or playing around, but that's okay. You're just starting out, and it's totally okay to just do a bunch of things and get rid of what doesn't work and keep what does. That's totally normal. Another thing about branding is that I always say pick good stock photos if you cannot take pictures yourself. So some people are really lucky and they've got that artsy touch, or they're really good with the camera and they can make really good stock image quality photos. For those of you that can't, feel free to use stock photos. There's a ton of free sites, but just make sure that they're the same images, like the same quality of images. You don't want to use a picture of a giraffe one day, but your brand is about elephants. You know what I mean? So like, make sure that any images that you pick are really sticking to your brand and what images speak to your brand. Don't just go for it because you need to create something. Everything should be really thoughtful when it comes to branding. Another key point that I say when I'm talking about branding is that branding is not just putting your product or service out there and just saying, come buy my product or come to my shop and try it. Branding is storytelling. So essentially, it's just being honest with your consumer, because they know if you're just going to pitch a product or service that you just want them to come into the door and give them money, that they know that their best interest isn't at your heart. And I feel like you're doing yourself a huge disservice if you're just pitching your product or your services. So tell a story. Talk about what excited you to get into business. Talk about why you think your service or product is good for the community. Just kind of talk about stuff and be genuine, because that brand storytelling is essentially what's going to capture people. And then when you're being consistent, so anytime that you're posting on Facebook or anytime that you're making flyers or anything like that, it should all have that font, those brand colors. It should have the images that are in relation to your brand. Every time you do that, people are going to see that and they're like, oh, I know that brand. I associate something with that brand. And then it just keeps you top of mind. It keeps you so that people are thinking about you. And then with following up with the brand storytelling and just being genuine and letting people see into your business, it's just going to tie everything up and really get people in the door for you. So with branding, there's a ton of different things to consider. I know with marketing, you could go on for days. I know I certainly can. But just follow those rules of thumb, and that's a good place to start. And then as you grow, just expand. Just make sure that you're always keeping those fonts, that color, those images that are associated with your brand, and make sure that you're always staying true to what it is that you set out to do in the first place. So I hope that answered your question. Again, just leave me any questions that are marketing related in the comments, or send us a direct message if you're a little bit nervous about asking. Stay safe out there, and we will see you soon. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.